The Renford estate glittered under the glow of hundreds of candles. Music drifted through the marble halls, violins, laughter, the clinking of champagne glasses. On the surface, it was a night of joy. 18 years old today, Elias Renford was finally of age. He stood at the edge of the ballroom, dressed in pale silver silk that shimmered under the chandeliers. His long platinum hair, tied with a white ribbon, brushed his slender shoulders. Every noble lady in the room whispered about his beauty, too delicate for a boy, too perfect for an Omega. He smiled politely when spoken to, bowing just as etiquette demanded, but inside, he was hollow. "You look wonderful tonight, dear," his stepmother cooed, brushing a hand over his sleeve. Lady Merelda Renford, elegant, cold, and endlessly calculating. Her smile never reached her eyes. "You should be grateful," she continued softly, "that you were born beautiful. Beauty brings opportunities." Elias bowed his head. "Yes, my lady." He wanted to ask, "Why does your gaze feel like a knife?" But instead, he lifted his goblet and forced another smile. As the night drew on, the guests toasted. The candles melted lower and the music faded into quiet murmurs. Elias escaped to the garden, the moonlight soft on his pale skin. The night air smelled of lilac and rain. He pressed a hand to his chest, trying to calm his heartbeat. His suppressants had been running low. His heat was coming soon, and the thought of his stepmother discovering it terrified him. He didn't hear the footsteps behind him until a voice murmured, "You shouldn't be alone, my lord." It was Sir Rowan, one of the royal envoys who had arrived earlier that day. His eyes, like polished obsidian, reflected no warmth. "Her ladyship requests your presence in the West Wing. There's a matter of inheritance." Elias hesitated. "Inheritance, indeed. Your future," something in the man's tone froze him. Still, he obeyed. The West Wing was dark, lit only by 2 oil lamps. His stepmother stood near the fireplace, her gown gleaming like black satin. A scroll lay open on the table beside her, stamped with the royal seal. "You came," she said softly. "Good. What is this about, mother?" "Not mother," she corrected, eyes glinting. "Call me Lady Merelda. You are no son of mine." The words cut deeper than he expected. Then she stepped closer, the scent of her perfume sharp and metallic. "Elias, you know your sister Lyanna is dying. The fever is eating her lungs. The royal healers refuse to treat her, unless I offered them something of equal value." Elias blinked, confused. "Equal value?" Merelda's lips curved. "You." He froze. The fire crackled in the silence. "What? You will leave tonight. The royal envoy will escort you to the Valhart fortress. You are to become the consort of His Majesty, the Alpha King." Elias stepped back, his blood running cold. "The Paralyzed King? The one cursed by the gods? Cursed or not, he's still the most powerful Alpha alive," she said. "He requires an Omega. You are unclaimed, beautiful, and of noble blood. You will save this family. You will save your sister." Tears burned his eyes. "You're selling me." Merelda's smile sharpened. "I'm saving us. You'll live in a palace, Elias. You'll have food, silk, gold. What more could an Omega like you want?" "Freedom," he whispered. She turned away. "Freedom doesn't heal dying girls. Now drink this." Before he could react, Rowan seized him by the arm. A bitter liquid was forced past his lips, and the world tilted, darkness swallowing the light. The last thing he heard was his old voice, calm and cold. "Make sure the king knows he's getting a virgin. He likes them pure." When Elias awoke, he was no longer home. The air smelled of iron and frost. The carriage rocked beneath him. Outside, thunder rolled through distant mountains. He pressed his trembling hands to his lap, silk sheets beneath his fingers, heavy cuffs around his wrists. Through the small window, he saw black banners flying in the storm, the crest of the Valhart kingdom. He shivered, whispering to himself, "I've been sold to the Alpha King." The wind howled and the rain began to fall. The world outside the carriage was gray and endless, a land of mist, stone, and wind. Hours passed before the wheels finally groaned to a halt. Elias blinked, his body sore from travel. When the door opened, the icy air bit at his skin like knives. Before him loomed the Valhart fortress, towering walls of black stone, banners whipping under the storm. The castle was half shrouded in fog, ancient and formidable, as though the very mountain had grown around it to keep the world away. "So this," Is the Alpha King's home? A soldier opened the door, bowing stiffly. His Majesty awaits you in the throne room. Omega. Omega. The word felt like a chain. Elias stepped down slowly, the rain soaking into his silver cloak. His feet trembled as he walked through the long corridor. High arches, dimly lit torches, the echo of every step swallowed by silence. The servants bowed but did not meet his eyes. Every wall bore scars of past wars, swords displayed, banners faded. There was no warmth here, only power and ghosts. The throne room doors opened with a deep, echoing creak. At first, Elias thought the room empty, until he saw the figure on the dais. A man sat upon the black throne, his posture straight despite the wheelchair that supported him. The flickering torchlight caught on the edges of his armor, on the sharp line of his jaw, on the eyes, golden, like molten amber, piercing through the dim. His presence hit Elias like thunder. Lucian Valahart, the paralyzed Alpha King. He was more beautiful and more terrifying than any rumor could describe. Elias immediately dropped to one knee, bowing his head. Your Majesty, for a long, unbearable moment, silence. Then the king spoke, his voice low, gravel-edged, dangerous. So, the Renford sent me a trembling rabbit. Elias's heart hammered in his chest. He dared not lift his gaze. Tell me, Lucian continued, his tone slow, deliberate. Did they tell you why you're here? They said, to be of service, Your Majesty. Lucian's fingers drummed once against the armrest of his chair. The faintest smirk ghosted over his lips. Service. He leaned forward slightly. Do you even know what that means, little Omega? Heat rushed to Elias's cheeks. I will obey whatever Your Majesty desires. That made Lucian's gaze darken. He wheeled his chair forward, the sound of its motion echoing through the chamber. Each slow movement carried authority, command, danger. When he stopped, Elias could feel the warmth of his body even through the chill air. Look at me. The command was soft, yet heavy with alpha dominance. Elias raised his head hesitantly, and for the first time their eyes met. Elias's breath caught. Lucian's gaze was sharp enough to wound, but there was something else behind it, not cruelty, not lust, something older, something hollow. You're younger than I expected, Lucian said quietly, and prettier. Elias's throat tightened. If Your Majesty disapproves, Lucian cut him off with a dry laugh. Disapprove? No. You were sold to me, were you not? A transaction. I'm simply inspecting the goods. The words stung more than Elias wanted to admit. His hands clenched in his lap. Lucian noticed. His eyes softened almost imperceptibly. Tell me your name. Elias. Elias Renford, Your Majesty. Elias, Lucian repeated, the syllables curling on his tongue like something delicate, something he hadn't said in years. You will remain in the East Wing. The servants will attend you. You will dine with me each evening. Nothing more. Elias blinked, startled. Your Majesty does not wish to share chambers. Lucian's expression cooled again, turning unreadable. I do not need an Omega in my bed. I need loyalty. A faint pang of disappointment fluttered through Elias's chest, quickly buried under relief. Yes, Your Majesty. Lucian turned his chair back toward the throne, his cloak brushing the marble floor. Dismissed. Elias hesitated, then bowed and left quiet. But as he crossed the threshold, Lucian's voice followed him, softer now, almost to himself. White jasmine. Elias froze, glancing back. The king's eyes were closed, his fingers at his temple. As though fighting a memory, he didn't turn again. That night, Elias was led to his chambers. A room far larger than his entire home, with high windows and silver drapes. A fire flickered in the hearth, painting warmth across the cold stone. He sat on the edge of the bed, clutching his cloak to his chest. He could still feel those golden eyes on him. The air around Lucian had been charged, his scent faint but intoxicating. Cedarwood, frost, and something darker, an alpha's power restrained, controlled. And yet, beneath that control, a shadow of hunger. In another part of the fortress, Lucian sat alone in his study. His gloved hands trembled slightly as he removed the silver ring from his finger, an old habit he hadn't felt in years. Elias Renford. The scent of jasmine still lingered faintly in his senses. It stirred something inside him he thought long dead. His wolf, long silent since the curse, stirred restlessly. Why now, he thought bitterly. Why him? He looked out the window, into the storm. Stay away from me, little Omega, he murmured. I'm not the savior you think I am. Thunder cracked across the sky, and somewhere down the hall Elias whispered a quiet prayer to the gods, that whatever fate awaited him in this palace, it would be kind. He did not know that by morning he would be summoned again, this time not as a servant, but as the king's consort. The morning came cold and gray. Snow had fallen overnight, blanketing the fortress rooftops in white. Bells tolled through the fog, not for celebration, but decree. By royal order, the Omega known as Elias Renford was to become the royal consort of His Majesty Lucian Valhart, the paralyzed Alpha King of Valhart. A marriage not of love, but of law. Elias stood before a mirror as the attendants fastened the final clasp of his ceremonial robe. White silk embroidered with gold thread and lined with fur so soft it almost melted beneath his touch. He felt like a doll dressed for display, not a person about to marry. You look exquisite, Your Highness, whispered one of the servants. He flinched at the title. Your Highness. It didn't belong to him. None of this did. Outside the window, snowflakes drifted down like ashes. In the grand cathedral, the court assembled. Nobles filled the pews, their whispers a storm of gossip. The king will marry an Omega? I heard he cannot even stand. Then why bind himself to one? The murmurs silenced as the doors opened. Elias walked down the long marble aisle alone. His steps echoed, soft, deliberate, his hands trembling as he held the ceremonial bouquet of frost lilies. At the altar, the king awaited. Lucian sat in his dark silver armor, the high collar of his coat framing his throat, a long fur cloak trailing behind his wheelchair. His golden eyes fixed on Elias, unreadable. For a heartbeat, the world held still. Even the torches seemed to dim, as though the air between them burned too bright to hold light. Your Majesty, Elias whispered, kneeling. Rise, Lucian said softly. His voice was the same, deep, calm, but the faint tremor when he said rise betrayed something else beneath the surface, a tension neither dared to name. The high priest stepped forward, holding the book of vows. By decree of the gods and the crown, you are to be bound in name, title, and blood. Do you, Elias Renford, swear to serve, protect, and remain loyal to His Majesty, Lucian Valhart? Elias hesitated. His throat was dry. But then he lifted his eyes, met Lucian's gaze, and whispered, I swear. The priest turned to Lucian. And do you, Your Majesty, swear to protect, honor, and grant shelter to your consort, Elias Renford? Lucian's gaze softened, barely. He spoke quietly, almost as if only Elias could hear. I swear. The priest nodded. Then by royal decree I pronounce you king and consort. What the crown binds, no mortal hand shall sever. A hollow sound, a hammer striking metal, echoed as the royal seal was stamped upon the decree. It was done. The feast afterward was magnificent but cold. Music played, nobles toasted, yet no laughter felt genuine. Elias sat beside the king at the long table, barely touching his food. His fingers trembled slightly as he lifted his goblet. Lucian noticed. You should eat, Lucian murmured quietly, his tone softer than before. I'm not hungry, Your Majesty, Elias replied, lowering his gaze. Lucian's lips twitched faintly. Do you always call your husband Your Majesty? Elias froze, startled, his cheeks flushed pink. I don't know what else to call you. Lucian leaned closer, his scent, dark cedar and frost, brushing against Elias's senses. Lucian will do, he murmured. Elias's pulse skipped. Then, thank you, Lucian. The name left his lips like a secret, soft and fragile. Lucian's golden eyes lingered on him for a moment too long before he turned away, hiding whatever storm had flickered there. That night the palace was silent. Snow drifted past the windows as Elias was escorted to the king's private chambers. His hands were cold as marble when he knocked. Enter, came the deep voice within. Lucian sat by the fire, cloak off, the faint gleam of his silver hair catching the light. His wheelchair stood beside him, but he was half out of it, propped against the armrest with quiet dignity. Elias stopped in the doorway, unsure. Your Majesty. Lucien, they told me I should come to you. Lucien looked up. His eyes were unreadable. So they did. He gestured to the seat across from him. Sit. Elias obeyed, heart racing. The air between them was thick with unspoken things. Duty, pity, curiosity, and something heavier. Lucien poured 2 glasses of wine, the motion precise despite his weakened hands. He handed one to Elias. Drink, he said. You'll need it for what I'm about to say. Elias took it, fingers brushing Lucien's. The spark that leapt between them made both men still for a heartbeat. Lucien exhaled slowly. This marriage is a contract, nothing more. You will be cared for, protected, given anything you ask, but you are not my prisoner. Elias blinked. Then why? Because the council demands an heir, Lucien interrupted quietly, and they believe a royal Omega may lift the curse upon my bloodline. His voice darkened. Superstition. But I am tired of fighting them. He turned his gaze to the fire. You were sold to save your sister. I know this. I will not touch you unless you wish it. But if you bear me an heir, even in name, the crown will protect you from all harm. Do you understand? Elias's heart twisted. You knew? Lucien's eyes met his. I know everything that happens in my kingdom, Elias. A tear slipped down Elias's cheek. Then you know I didn't want this. Lucien's voice dropped, almost tender. Nor did I. Silence stretched between them, the crackle of fire filling the room. Then softly, almost against his own restraint, Lucien reached forward, brushing away the tear with his gloved thumb. Don't cry. This cage doesn't have to be made of chains. Elias stared at him, breath trembling. Then what should I call it? Lucien's golden gaze lingered on his face, the trembling lips, the fragile beauty that shouldn't have been born in a world so cruel. A beginning, he said quietly. That night, Lucien ordered a separate bed to be placed beside his. He didn't touch Elias, not even once. But long after Elias had fallen asleep, Lucien sat awake, watching the snow outside, haunted by the soft rhythm of the Omega's breathing. His wolf stirred restlessly inside him, whispering a truth he didn't want to face. She is your mate. Days turned to weeks. The fortress grew quieter as winter deepened. The snow never seemed to melt here, as though the mountains themselves refused to surrender their cold. Inside the stone walls, Elias lived like a ghost. He dined beside the king each evening, yet their words were few. He slept in a golden cage of silk, yet woke each night trembling from dreams of home. And yet, slowly, something was changing. Lucien no longer avoided his gaze. Sometimes, during meals, Elias would feel those golden eyes linger on him, brief, sharp glances that made his pulse skip. Once, he caught Lucien watching him laugh at a servant's small joke. The king had looked away immediately, but his expression had softened, just a fraction. It happened one cold afternoon in the royal gardens. Elias had ventured out wrapped in furs, craving air that didn't taste of stone and secrets. The snow crunched beneath his boots, the frost glittering on the bare branches like diamonds. He stopped by the frozen fountain, a sculpture of 2 wolves entwined in eternal chase, and reached out to brush the snow from one of their faces. Even they look lonely, he murmured. You should not be out here alone. Elias turned sharply. The voice was deep, calm, unmistakable. Lucien sat at the garden's edge in his chair, his cloak a cascade of black fur, his eyes glinting beneath the pale winter sun. The guards stayed far back, giving them privacy. Your Majesty, Elias stammered. I didn't mean, you will catch cold. I've endured colder things, Elias said before he could stop himself. Lucien's brow lifted slightly. Is that so? He gestured for him to come closer. Elias hesitated, then obeyed, his breath ghosting in the frigid air. Lucien studied him, the delicate flush on his cheeks, the way snowflakes clung to his silver lashes. You look fragile, he said. But you're not, are you? Elias lowered his eyes. No one fragile survives this place. Lucien's lips curved, just barely. True. He shifted slightly, a flicker of pain crossing his features. Elias noticed immediately. You're hurt, he said quietly. Old wounds, Lucien replied. They ache when the cold bites. Without thinking, Elias stepped closer. May I help you? Lucien blinked, startled. You? Elias knelt before him. His fingers trembled, but his voice did not. I was trained in healing tinctures. My stepmother insisted I learn. She said it would make me useful. Lucien exhaled slowly. Very well, try. Elias rolled back the edge of his glove, revealing the deep scar that cut along Lucien's wrist, a reminder of the arrow that had poisoned his veins and stolen his strength. He touched it gently, his fingers cool and feather-light. Lucien flinched, not from pain but from something else entirely. His wolf stirred, snarling beneath his skin. The scent of Elias, soft jasmine and rain, enveloped him, dizzying, impossible to ignore. You should not touch me like that, Lucien said quietly. Why not? Elias whispered, looking up at him. Lucien's gaze locked with his. Because I might not want you to stop. The air between them thickened. Elias's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the pull, that instinctive, dangerous gravity between Alpha and Omega. For a moment, neither of them moved. The world held its breath. Then, gently, Elias withdrew his hand. Your pulse is strong, he murmured, trying to steady himself. That's good. Lucien's voice softened. You risk much by showing me kindness. Elias looked at him, his expression brave for the first time. Perhaps I have nothing left to lose. Lucien stared at him for a long moment, the frost in his golden eyes melting, just slightly. You're wrong, Elias, he said. You still have your heart. Guard it well, before someone like me takes it. He wheeled away before Elias could answer, his cloak swirling like a shadow. Elias watched him go, his pulse fluttering wildly. He pressed a hand to his chest. It was foolish, dangerous even, but the cold didn't feel quite so cruel anymore. That night, Lucien stood before the mirror in his chambers, staring at his reflection. He could still feel the ghost of Elias's touch on his skin. His wolf growled restlessly beneath his breath, aching with a need he had long denied. He smells of jasmine, Lucien murmured, closing his eyes. And he looks at me like I'm still a man. He clenched his fists until the knuckles went white. But I am a monster, Elias. You should have run from me. He didn't know that, at that very moment, Elias was awake in his own chamber, sitting by the window watching the snowfall and whispering to himself, why do I want to see him again, even when he frightens me? Night fell heavy over the royal fortress. The snow had not stopped in days. The whole world seemed trapped beneath a blanket of silence, the kind that swallowed even whispers. Elias lay awake in his chamber, unable to sleep. He could still feel the warmth of Lucien's hand from the garden, the way his voice had softened just for him. That single, impossible sentence kept echoing in his mind, because I might not want you to stop. It was madness to think about it. He was a servant in all but name, a pawn sold into marriage to save someone else's life. And yet, he couldn't silence the racing of his heart whenever the king looked his way. The next morning, the palace corridors were quiet. Servants whispered that the king had refused his physician again, that his pain had worsened with the cold. Worry gnawed at Elias. He asked to bring the king's breakfast personally, an act that startled the guards but that none dared refuse. When he entered Lucien's chamber, the scent of burning wood and wolf musk enveloped him. The king sat near the fire, his cloak draped around his shoulders. His face looked paler than usual, his jaw tight with pain. Elias hesitated. Your Majesty, you should rest. Let me. I do not need help, Lucien said coldly, but his hands trembled faintly as he reached for his cup. Elias noticed, and before he could think, he crossed the distance and steadied it. Lucien froze. His eyes flicked up sharply, meeting Elias's. The silence between them was electric. I said I don't need. Then why are you shaking? Elias whispered. The question cut through the cold like sunlight. Lucien's breath hitched. For a heartbeat, he looked utterly human. Not the ruthless king everyone feared, but a man exhausted by pain and haunted by ghosts. Elias swallowed and reached again for his wrist, his touch gentle. Please, he said softly, let me help you, even just this once. Lucien looked at him for a long time, and then, with a quiet sigh, let the cup go. As Elias poured the tea, his gaze caught on something, a faint silvery mark near the king's neck, half hidden beneath his collar. A scar that glimmered faintly, not natural. His healer's instincts stirred. That wasn't from a blade or arrow. It pulsed faintly, like runic magic. A curse, Elias realized. He glanced up, but Lucian's expression had gone cold again, as if he could sense Elias's discovery. "Do not ask," Lucian said flatly. "It's magic, isn't it?" Elias whispered. "That's why your legs—" "Enough." His voice cracked like thunder. Elias flinched, setting the cup down quickly. But he didn't back away. His heart was pounding, yet his eyes were steady. "If you don't let anyone help you, the curse will kill you." Lucian's breath came out sharp. "You think I haven't tried?" He turned his face away, and in that motion Elias saw something that stole his breath. The king's hand twitched, his boot shifted, just barely, but enough. "You can move," Elias breathed. Lucian froze. The flicker of movement stopped. The air thickened like ice. "You've been pretending," Elias whispered. "To the court, to everyone." Lucian's jaw clenched, a muscle twitching there. "You should leave, Elias." "No," Elias said quietly. "I want to understand." Lucian's eyes blazed with restrained fury, but beneath it something else. Something raw. "Understanding me will not save you," he said. "It will only break you." "Then let it," Elias said, before he could stop himself. "I've been broken before." The king stared at him, really stared, as though he'd never seen anyone like him before. Then, slowly, he rose. Elias gasped. The motion was unsteady but real. Lucian's legs trembled as he gripped the armrest, then took a step forward. Another. The muscles in his jaw tightened with pain, but he didn't fall. The firelight painted his features in gold and shadow, making him look like a god resurrected from ruin. "This," Lucian said quietly, voice low and rough, "is what remains of me. The curse eats at my strength. Each time I walk, I bleed inside." He took another step, until he stood directly before Elias. Elias's breath hitched. They were so close he could feel the king's heat through his robe, smell the faint scent of wild cedar and winter frost that clung to him. "Now tell me," Lucian murmured, his gaze heavy on Elias's lips, "does your kindness still hold, knowing I am half a beast?" Elias's heart fluttered painfully. His voice came out barely a whisper. "You're not a beast, aren't I?" Lucian's eyes darkened. "When I can smell your fear, and want you all the same?" Elias swallowed hard. "Then maybe we're both cursed." Something in Lucian broke then. His hand lifted, rough fingers brushing the side of Elias's throat, where his scent glands pulsed faintly. Elias shivered, caught between fear and the pull of instinct. The scent of alpha power filled the room, intoxicating and dangerous. "You should run," Lucian whispered, his voice trembling. "And if I don't?" Lucian leaned closer, his lips a breath away. His eyes burned like molten gold. "Then, little Omega, don't blame me for what I become." But he didn't kiss him. He turned sharply and collapsed back into his chair, trembling, sweat glistening on his brow. "Leave me," he rasped. "Now." Elias hesitated, torn between terror and compassion, before stepping back slowly. As he left the room, his heart thundered in his chest. He didn't know what frightened him more, the curse that haunted the king, or the fire he felt burning between them. That night, Lucian sat alone in the dark, clutching the armrest. His legs ached from the strain, his pulse wild, but the memory of Elias's scent lingered like a brand. "He smells like spring rain," he whispered hoarsely. "And I am winter." The palace trembled under silver light. It was the night of the full moon, the time when every alpha in the kingdom was required to remain secluded, their primal instincts heightened by the call of their beasts. But the king's quarters were sealed more heavily than any other. No one was permitted near, no one, except Elias. That evening, Elias had been summoned by the king's advisor. "His Majesty is unwell," the advisor said in a low voice. "He refuses aid, but he asked for you." Elias's heart stumbled. "Me?" The advisor's eyes flickered with unease. "Do not linger. If he commands you to leave, you run." Elias nodded, though his palms were trembling. He didn't know what awaited him behind those massive doors, only that something in him couldn't turn away. The moment he entered, he sensed it, the air thick with wild electric energy. The scent of the Alpha King filled the chamber, darker, stronger, intoxicating. Lucian sat by the window, bathed in silver light. His cloak had fallen from his shoulders, revealing the hard lines of his body beneath thin linen. His eyes glowed faintly, gold burning like molten fire. Elias froze. He could feel the power in the room, heavy, magnetic, dangerous. "Your Majesty?" he whispered. They said you weren't well. You shouldn't be here." Lucian's voice was low, strained. Elias stepped closer, concern overtaking fear. "You called for me." Lucian turned his head. The veins along his neck pulsed faintly, his jaw tight with restraint. "I thought I could control it. I was wrong. Control what? The curse. The wolf." His breath came ragged. His hands gripped the chair's armrests until they cracked. Elias's chest tightened. "Let me help you." "No!" The shout made the firelight flicker. "You don't understand what happens when the moon rises." Lucian's pupils dilated, his scent filling the air. Dominance, desire, hunger. Elias stumbled back, his own pheromones spiking in response. His body recognized the alpha before his mind could. "You're reacting," Lucian rasped, voice trembling. "Get out, Elias. Before you what?" Elias whispered. "You think I fear you?" Lucian's breath hitched. "You should." He gritted his teeth, but his body betrayed him, trembling, changing. His claws half extended, his fangs sharp behind parted lips. Elias stepped forward anyway, until he stood just in front of him. "If this curse makes you a beast, then let me face it too." Lucian's control snapped like glass. He rose, impossibly fast, the chair crashing behind him. His hands slammed against the wall on either side of Elias, caging him in. His scent flooded the air, thick and heady. "You don't know what you're asking for," he growled. "Then show me," Elias whispered, eyes shining with defiance and something softer. "Show me who you really are." Lucian's chest heaved. The sound that left him was half growl, half groan, a sound of pure torment. His forehead rested against Elias's for one trembling second. "You're so close I can't think," he murmured. "You smell like everything I've denied myself." Elias's lips parted, a shiver running through him. "Then stop denying it." The words undid him. Lucian's hand slid to Elias's waist, his claws barely grazing fabric. He leaned in, his breath hot against Elias's ear. Every inch of his restraint trembled on the edge of breaking. But then Lucian shoved himself backward violently, as if burned. "No," he roared, voice breaking. "I won't hurt you." Elias gasped, watching as the king fell to his knees, clutching his chest, his body trembling with the effort to control the beast inside. "Lucian, go," he rasped. "Before I lose what's left of my mind." Elias knelt before him, tears stinging his eyes. "If I leave, you'll face this alone. I can't." Lucian's eyes lifted, glowing gold, wild and broken. "Then you're a fool. Then let me be your fool," Elias whispered. Lucian stared at him, and for a heartbeat the beast within seemed to still. The room filled with nothing but their breaths, their heartbeats, their unspoken need. The curse pulsed between them, an ancient magic binding their fates tighter with every second. And then, the king's body finally gave way. He collapsed forward, his head resting against Elias's shoulder, his breathing harsh but steady. Elias caught him, holding him close, ignoring the danger, the heat, the trembling alpha power surging through him. "Sleep," Elias murmured, brushing the king's hair back gently. "I'll stay until the morning." Lucian's voice, half-conscious, broke softly against his neck. "You don't know what you've done, little Omega." But Elias only held him tighter, whispering into the cold, moonlit silence, "Then let me bear it with you." When dawn broke, the storm had passed. The moon's pull had faded. Lucian awoke, his body heavy and weak, and found Elias asleep in his arms, his head resting against his chest. For the first time in years, the king smiled, a small, fragile thing, but real. "Foolish boy," he whispered, brushing a strand of hair from Elias's face. "You've already begun to heal what I thought was dead." Outside, the sun rose over the snowy mountains, pale gold against endless white, and deep within the cursed king's heart, something ancient stirred awake. The snow had stopped. The world outside the fortress glittered under fragile sunlight, but inside the king's quarters, silence still clung to the air. Elias woke slowly, warmth pressing against his back. It took him a heartbeat to realize where he was, lying on the massive fur-lined bed, the king's cloak draped over him like a shield. His body went still. He could feel it, the steady rhythm of a heartbeat behind him. The king was awake, watching him. "You stayed," Lucian's voice murmured softly behind him. Elias rolled onto his back, meeting that molten gold gaze. You asked me to leave, he whispered. And you didn't listen. No. Lucian studied him for a long time. The curve of his lips, the fragile defiance in his eyes. His expression was unreadable, but something dangerous flickered there. No one disobeys me, he said finally. Then punish me, Elias said, his voice trembling but steady. Lucian inhaled sharply. You don't understand what you're saying. Then make me understand. The words hung between them like a spark ready to ignite. Lucian's hand lifted before he could stop it, fingers brushing the side of Elias's throat, over the place where his scent gland pulsed faintly beneath pale skin. Elias gasped softly, his own pheromones blooming in the air, sweet and sharp, the room filled with their mingled scents, storm and jasmine, dominance and surrender. Lucian's eyes darkened. Your body is calling to me, he said, voice low, trembling. Do you even realize it? Then answer it, Elias whispered, eyes glistening. Or let me go. Lucian froze. For the first time, the king looked afraid. Not of the curse, not of the moon, but of himself. If I kiss you, he said, there will be no turning back. Then don't hold back. Lucian's restraint snapped. He caught Elias's jaw gently but firmly, lowering his mouth to his. The first touch was tentative, a brush of warmth, fragile and reverent. But the moment their lips met, something broke. Elias trembled, clutching at the king's tunic as if drowning. The kiss deepened, rougher, desperate, the kind born of years of buried loneliness. Lucian's wolf stirred violently beneath his skin, power surging through his veins. He tried to pull away, but the bond had already begun to spark. The air shimmered faintly. A mark, silvery and glowing, began to appear between them, faint as moonlight, curling like runes across Lucian's wrist and Elias's throat. Elias gasped, breaking the kiss. What's happening? Lucian's eyes widened, the glow reflected in them like fire. No, this can't be. The marks pulsed once, and Elias cried out softly, his body shivering as heat spread through him. Not pain, but something binding. Something that connected their very souls. You've triggered it, Lucian whispered hoarsely. The curse reacts to desire, and now it's chosen you, chosen me, as my bond. Elias stared at him in shock. Your mate? Lucian clenched his fists, fighting for control. The curse was never meant to break. It was meant to consume whoever the wolf desires most. And now... His eyes closed, pain flashing across his features. Now it's you. Elias's heart twisted. Then let it take me. Don't say that! Lucian snapped, grabbing his shoulders. His voice broke, desperate. You have no idea what it does. Every full moon it feeds on me. If it touches you... He stopped. His breath came ragged. Elias reached up and cupped his face gently, his eyes glimmering with tears. Then let me suffer it with you. You've carried it alone long enough. Lucian's throat worked. Why do you care so much? Elias smiled faintly through his tears. Because when you looked at me, I didn't feel like a burden for the first time in my life. Lucian's gaze shattered. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to Elias's. You'll regret this, he whispered. Loving a cursed man. Then curse me too. Lucian's breath trembled. And though every instinct screamed for him to stop, he kissed him again. This time, the bond sealed, the mark flared silver between them, and Elias's body arched, light pouring from his skin. The curse roared through Lucian's veins, but instead of agony, warmth flooded him. For the first time in years, the king felt alive. The darkness that had chained his legs loosened, the pain fading like mist. He pulled back, breathless, his hands trembling as he looked down at Elias, pale, glowing faintly, but alive. You've broken part of it, Lucian whispered, voice shaking. Elias blinked weakly. Then maybe it was never meant to destroy you. Lucian lowered his forehead against his, eyes wet with something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Your madness, little Omega, he murmured. But for the first time, I think I might want to live. That night, for the first time in years, the king slept without pain. And Elias, though exhausted, felt something strange. A heartbeat that wasn't his own echoing faintly within him. A bond had formed, one that tied his soul to the cursed Alpha King. Morning came to the royal fortress in a blaze of light. The world that had once felt lifeless now hummed faintly with energy. Servants whispered that the king was walking again, that the curse had weakened overnight. At the center of it all stood Elias, still dizzy from the bond that burned faintly at his throat. Every time he inhaled, he could sense Lucian, his scent, his pulse, his emotions echoing through the connection between them. When the council gathered that morning, Lucian appeared in full regalia for the first time in months. His crown gleamed, and though he leaned on a cane, his gaze was sharp as the edge of a blade. Gasps filled the hall. The Queen Mother rose to her feet, her expression tight. "This is impossible," she said. "You were dying, my son." Lucian's voice carried through the hall like thunder. "I was cursed. I am not any more." He turned his head slightly, and every noble followed his gaze, to Elias, standing quietly behind the throne in simple white robe. The Queen Mother's eyes narrowed. "That boy," she hissed. "The Omega your stepmother sold to us. What have you done, Lucian?" Lucian's jaw tightened. "He saved my life. He bewitched you." Lucian's eyes blazed gold. The air rippled faintly as the Alpha's aura surged. "He is under my protection," he said, voice low and dangerous. "No one touches him. No one questions him." Elias's breath caught. The entire room went silent, every heartbeat bending beneath the king's dominance. The Queen Mother's face turned pale, but she said nothing more. Later, when the court dismissed, Lucian found Elias standing by the balcony overlooking the mountains. The wind tangled his hair, his eyes distant. "You shouldn't have said that," Elias whispered. "They'll hate me." "Let them," Lucian replied. "I don't care." He moved closer, his hand resting lightly at Elias's waist. "I've spent too long pretending I felt nothing. The moment I defended you, I felt alive again." Elias's eyes softened. "You're the king, Lucian. They will call me a curse." Lucian bent his head until his breath brushed Elias's ear. "Then let them. You are the only curse I'll ever welcome." The words stole Elias's breath. His pulse raced beneath Lucian's fingertips, and for a heartbeat the world seemed to still. Lucian kissed him, slowly, reverently this time. It wasn't a kiss of hunger, but of promise. Elias melted against him, his hands curling around the fabric of the king's cloak. The bond between them thrummed, warm and electric. When the kiss broke, Lucian whispered, "They can take the throne from me if they wish, but they will never take you." The sun sank behind the peaks, flooding the balcony with gold. In that light, for the first time, Elias smiled. That night, the court whispered of the cursed king who walked again, and the mysterious Omega who had tamed him. But behind closed doors, the fortress finally felt alive, filled with quiet laughter, gentle touches, and the scent of two hearts learning to heal together. Winter loosened its grip on the fortress, but peace did not follow. Rumors spread through the court like wildfire. Riders from the northern tribes had crossed the border, and they claimed the king's curse had been transferred, that the wolf magic binding Lucian now lived in another. "Elias!" He heard the whispers when he passed through the corridors. "He bewitched the king. He stole the curse into himself. He'll destroy us all." Every word stung, but he held his head high, because when he returned to the king's chambers each night, Lucian's eyes softened just for him, and the world outside ceased to matter. That evening, the fortress stood under soft rain. Lucian had dismissed his guards and council early, claiming exhaustion. When Elias entered, the fire was already burning low. The room smelled faintly of smoke and cedar, and of him. "You're quiet tonight," Lucian said without turning. Elias approached slowly. "They're saying the curse is inside me now." Lucian's shoulders stiffened. "Then they will learn silence. They're afraid, Lucian, of me," he said, finally facing him. "Not of you. Never you." Elias stepped closer. "But they don't understand that we're connected, that when you hurt, I feel it too." Lucian looked at him for a long time, then reached up, brushing his thumb across Elias's cheek. "You feel too much, little Omega. And you feel too little." Lucian's mouth twitched, the ghost of a smile. "Perhaps. But when you look at me like that, it's hard to remember why I ever built these walls." Elias hesitated, then let them fall. The words were soft, almost a plea, and for once, Lucian didn't resist. He cupped Elias's face and kissed him, slow and deliberate, as though memorizing the shape of something he never thought he'd have. Elias's hand slid up to his chest, feeling the steady thrum of his heartbeat beneath his tunic. The kiss deepened, tender but full of longing, the kind that spoke of promises yet to come. Lucian broke it only to whisper against his lips, "When the world falls apart, I want to remember this. You here, with me." Elias's voice trembled. "Then make me remember too." Lucian drew him into his arms, holding him so close that their hearts seemed to beat as one. The firelight flickered across their faces, gold and shadow blending as rain tapped gently on the windows. He kissed Elias's forehead, then the corner of his mouth, then the mark glowing faintly at his throat. Every touch was a vow, silent, sacred, unspoken. "You make me human again," Lucian murmured. Elias smiled faintly. "And you make me brave." Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains, a warning of what was coming, but for that night neither of them cared. They stayed close until dawn, the king's hand entwined with his Omega's, their bond pulsing like a quiet heartbeat beneath the storm. At sunrise, a messenger arrived, breathless and pale. "Your Majesty, the northern armies have reached the border. They demand the Omega who broke the curse." Lucian's expression turned to steel. "Then they will learn," he said coldly, "what happens when someone threatens what is mine." The fortress gates trembled under the roar of northern horns. From the balcony, Elias watched the black banners of the enemy rise like storm clouds on the horizon. He could see their leader, a tall, silver-haired alpha, shouting for an audience. "Deliver the Omega who stole our magic," the envoy's voice thundered across the valley, "and we will spare your kingdom." Elias's heart pounded. "They're after me." Lucian's hand found his, fingers tightening around his knuckles. His voice was steady, but his eyes burned gold. "They will have to kill me first." "Lucian." "No," he said sharply. "You are not a bargaining piece. You are mine, my bond, my heart. Let them come." He turned toward the soldiers gathering below. The wind shifted, carrying the heavy scent of his dominance through the courtyard, ancient, wild, unmistakably alpha. Servants froze. The guards bowed instinctively. Even the air itself seemed to bend under the weight of his aura. Elias stared at him, trembling. The faint glow of the mark on his throat pulsed in answer, sinking to Lucian's heartbeat. "Lucian, your leg, you can't fight like before." Lucian smirked faintly. "Who said I need to walk to make them kneel?" He raised his hand. The sky darkened. For the first time, Elias saw the curse's remnants. The wolf magic still coiled inside him. It wasn't weakness. It was power, raw and divine. His eyes flared molten gold, and his voice rang like a command carved into the bones of the world. "I am Lucian Valethorn, King of the South. My curse was not broken. It was reborn, and it obeys me alone." Thunder crashed. The banners below caught fire without flame. The northern army fell to their knees, trembling under a pressure they couldn't name. The silver-haired envoy gasped, struggling to breathe. "Impossible. You were dying." Lucian stepped forward, his cane forgotten. "I was. Until he touched me." He gestured to Elias, standing behind him, pale, beautiful, and glowing softly in the stormlight. "This Omega gave me life. He is my bond, my soul, and my queen if I command it. If you come for him again, I will burn your kingdoms to ash." The envoy's eyes widened in horror. The storm broke, rain falling in sheets as the northern forces retreated, their courage dissolved into the mud. When silence finally fell, Lucian turned, swaying faintly. The strength that had carried him drained from his body, and Elias rushed forward, catching him before he fell. "Lucian, you pushed yourself too far." Lucian's lips curved weakly. "You're crying again, because you're reckless." Elias's voice cracked. "Because you'd destroy the world just to save me." "I would," Lucian whispered, "and I'll do it again if I have to." He leaned his forehead against Elias's, eyes half-lidded, voice trembling with exhaustion. "You are my reason, Elias. The curse was never my enemy. It was my reminder that I could still feel." Elias pressed a hand to his chest, feeling his heartbeat. "Then let me carry it with you, not as a burden but as love." Lucian smiled faintly, eyes closing as he whispered, "Then I am finally free." Elias kissed him softly, once then again, as the storm faded outside. It was a kiss of relief, devotion, and the kind of love that defied every law of their world. That night, the fortress stood silent under clear skies. The curse that had chained a king for years was broken not by power, but by an Omega's heart, and by morning, the kingdom would wake to a new dawn, ruled by the bond between a once-cursed Alpha and his chosen mate. The war drums quieted days ago, but the palace still pulsed with unease. Lucian's victory over the north had spread like wildfire, yet within the fortress walls, peace came softly, in the hush of candlelight and the steady rhythm of breathing shared in the dark. Elias had spent 3 days at the king's bedside, refusing to leave. Lucian's strength was returning, though his body still trembled from the storm of magic he'd unleashed. That evening, when the healers departed, Lucian beckoned Elias closer. His voice was low, rough from sleepless nights. "They say a king shouldn't need comfort," he murmured, "but I've never wanted anything more." Elias hesitated only a heartbeat before stepping to his side. The fire painted his skin gold. The scent of rain still clung to him. "You should rest," Elias whispered. "I can't," Lucian admitted. His gaze softened, tracing the line of Elias's throat. "Not while you stand there, looking at me like that." The air thickened, not with dominance, but devotion, the kind that burned slow and sure. Lucian reached up, fingers brushing Elias's jaw, and the world seemed to narrow until there was only them. 2 hearts still trembling from battle, bound by something neither could name. "You saved me," Lucian said. "No," Elias whispered. "We saved each other." Lucian's breath hitched. His thumb lingered at the corner of Elias's lips. Then, without a word, he drew him closer. The first kiss was gentle, reverent. The next, deeper, the bond pulsed between them, the faint golden light of their marks flaring softly in the dim room. Elias's hand slid into his hair, trembling slightly. Lucian's touch traced the curve of his spine, pulling him nearer until there was no space left to hide. They didn't need words. The way they breathed each other's names was enough. The night unfolded around them, soft sighs, quiet laughter, the whisper of hearts finding home after years of loneliness. The fire dimmed to embers, and outside, moonlight spilled across the balcony. By dawn, when the first light crept through the curtains, Lucian lay awake, watching Elias sleep beside him. His Omega's head rested over his heart, their marks still faintly glowing. For the first time in years, the king smiled. "Mine," he murmured softly, "and I am yours." Elias stirred, eyes fluttering open. "Morning, my king." Lucian chuckled quietly. "You make that sound like a blessing. Perhaps it is." He kissed Lucian's chest gently, the gesture tender, and the king's hand found his hair in return. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the warmth of their shared breath, neither knew that something had already begun to grow inside Elias, small, fragile, and filled with the same golden magic that once bound their hearts. A week later, Elias stood by the garden pond, pale and dizzy. The scent of roses made him sway, and a wave of warmth surged through him. The healer found him there, eyes wide in disbelief. "Your Majesty," the healer said to Lucian, voice shaking. "The Omega, he carries your air." Lucian froze. The world tilted. Then his gaze found Elias, stunned, trembling, radiant, and all he could do was cross the space between them, gathering him close as if afraid he'd vanish. "Our heir?" he whispered, his voice breaking with awe. "Our child?" Elias nodded faintly, tears bright in his eyes. "They said it was impossible." Lucian pressed his forehead against his. "Impossible doesn't exist for us." That night, the fortress bells rang, not for war, but for life. The curse that had once promised death had instead given birth to something new. A bond so strong it defied the laws of their world. And as the king held his Omega beneath the stars, the kingdom whispered of a prophecy reborn, of love that healed curses, and of a child destined to unite them all. The news spread like wildfire. By morning, every corridor of the royal fortress buzzed with disbelief. The cursed Alpha King's Omega was with child. Some whispered it was divine, others called it blasphemy. But for Lucian, there was only awe. He couldn't stop watching Elias. Every small movement drew his eyes, the way his hands brushed his abdomen when he thought no one was looking, the faint shimmer in his aura that made the room feel warm. Even the healers couldn't explain it. "The child carries traces of the king's ancient magic," they said. "It glows when the two of you are near." That night, Lucien dismissed the guards early. The chamber was quiet except for the crackle of the hearth. Elias sat by the window, moonlight bathing his face. He looked peaceful, almost unreal. Lucien approached slowly. "You've been awake all night again." Elias smiled faintly. "The child, they stir when the moon is full, like they can hear it." Lucien knelt beside him, resting a hand on the armrest. His voice softened. "Do you regret it?" Elias turned to him, eyes shimmering with emotion. "How could I regret something born from love?" Lucien exhaled, pressing his forehead to Elias's knee. "I swore I'd protect you from every curse in this world. I never thought you'd give me something so pure in return." Elias's fingers threaded gently through his hair. "You don't need to protect me from this. This is ours." The tenderness in his voice undid Lucien completely. He rose, cupping Elias's face in both hands. "You make me feel like I've been sleeping all my life until now." Their lips met, slow, reverent, filled with the weight of all they'd endured. It wasn't just desire this time, but something deeper, the calm certainty of belonging. When the kiss ended, Elias leaned against his chest, listening to the steady heartbeat beneath the king's tunic. "Lucien," he murmured, "do you think our child will be like you?" Lucien smiled against his hair. "Then they will be strong, or like me?" He pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "Then they will be kind." Elias laughed softly, tears glimmering. "Then they will be perfect." But not everyone shared their joy. In the shadows of the council chamber, the Queen Mother's eyes gleamed cold. "An Omega heir," she hissed, "born of the curse itself. If the prophecy is true, this child will either save or destroy us." The high priest bowed low. "Then, Your Majesty, we must ensure it is the former. Or," she said quietly, "prevent its birth altogether." Elsewhere, in their quiet room, Elias suddenly shivered. Lucien felt it too, a chill in the air, the bond between them tightening as if warning them of danger. He drew Elias close, holding him protectively. "Whatever comes," he vowed, "no one will touch you, no one will touch our child." Elias closed his eyes, leaning into his warmth. "I believe you." Lucien pressed a kiss to his temple. "Sleep, my love. I'll keep watch." And so he did. Through the long hours of night, while outside, a storm gathered beyond the wall. The storm arrived before dawn. Lightning clawed the horizon. Thunder shuddered through the fortress walls. And somewhere deep in the night, the sound of steel whispered through the corridors. Elias stirred first. He woke to silence. Too much silence. Lucien was still beside him, but his body was tense, his instincts already awake. The king's eyes opened, glowing faintly gold in the dark. "Don't move," he breathed. Elias froze, feeling the bond between them pulse tight with alarm. The door creaked. A shadow slipped inside. Cloaked, silent, a blade glinting faintly in hand. Lucien rose without sound, moving like the predator he once was. When the assassin lunged, Lucien caught the blade barehanded. Sparks of power flared, the faint gold glow of the curse answering his fury. "You entered my chamber," Lucien said, voice low and lethal. "You made the worst mistake of your life." The intruder trembled. "It isn't you we came for, it's the Omega." The rest of the words never came. With a single motion, Lucien sent the man sprawling, his weapon dissolving in golden fire. Elias gasped, clutching the blanket to his chest. Lucien turned instantly, his voice softening. "Are you hurt?" "No," Elias whispered. "But the child..." Lucien was at his side in an instant, kneeling to press a hand against his abdomen. "They're safe," he said fiercely. "You both are..." He pulled Elias into his arms, heart hammering against his ribs. "They dared to come for you," he muttered, shaking with controlled rage. "They dared..." Elias touched his face, his palm warm against Lucien's cheek. "Don't lose yourself again. I need you, not the monster the curse made you." Lucien closed his eyes, grounding himself in that voice, the one sound that could pierce the fog of his fury. "I'm here," he breathed. "I'm here, Elias." When he opened them again, his eyes were still glowing, but softer now, steady. He kissed Elias's forehead, lingering there, whispering against his skin, "They'll never reach you again. I swear it by my crown, my blood, and my bond." By morning, the fortress was on high alert. The assassins had vanished, leaving no trace except the faint scent of incense. the kind burned only in the Queen Mother's chapel. Lucian stood in the war room, his generals assembled before him. "I will not spill royal blood," he said quietly, "but anyone who threatens my Omega or my heir will know no mercy." "Your Majesty," one of them murmured, "if the court learns the Queen Mother ordered the attack." "Then let them learn," Lucian snapped. "Let them see who truly rules this kingdom now." That night, when the fortress was finally quiet again, Lucian returned to his chambers. Elias was sitting near the fire, wrapped in a shawl, his hand resting protectively over his stomach. Lucian paused at the door, watching him, this fragile, luminous soul who had somehow become his whole world. "You should rest," he said softly. Elias smiled faintly. "You always say that when you're the one who needs rest." Lucian crossed the room, sitting beside him. "When you were attacked, I realized I'd rather lose the crown than ever lose you." Elias's eyes glistened. "Then keep me safe by living, not fighting every ghost alone." Lucian took his hand, threading their fingers together. "Then live with me. For every dawn after this one." He leaned in, pressing a slow kiss to Elias's lips, gentle, grounding, a promise. Outside, thunder rolled again, but the storm no longer frightened them. Because in that moment, with Lucian's arms around him and their hearts beating in unison, Elias knew, whatever darkness still lingered, their love would always find the light. The palace was quieter than usual, too quiet. Elias felt it first, that hollow stillness in the corridors, like the fortress itself was holding its breath. Lucian had left early for council. He'd kissed Elias's forehead before dawn, promising to return by midday. But hours passed, and something inside Elias twisted. He rose, his hand instinctively resting over his abdomen, and stepped into the corridor. 2 guards bowed as he passed, though their eyes were nervous. "Where is the king?" Elias asked softly. "In the upper council chamber, Your Grace. With Her Majesty the Queen Mother." Something cold slid down Elias's spine. The doors to the council chamber opened on a whisper of incense. Lucian stood at the center of the room, his expression taut with restrained fury. Opposite him, the Queen Mother knelt before an altar, one Elias had never seen before. It pulsed faintly with dark light. "You shouldn't be here," Lucian said when he saw Elias. "What is this?" Elias whispered. The Queen Mother turned, her face pale and drawn. "The curse, child. The one that bound my son's soul to the wolves. Do you think such power came freely?" Elias's pulse quickened. "You made the bargain." The Queen Mother's eyes filled with tears, bitter, desperate. He was dying. "I would have done anything to save him, so I gave a promise. A life for a life." Lucian's voice was low, trembling with anger. "You promised my heir." Elias froze. "What?" The Queen Mother reached out as if pleading. "It was only words. I thought it would never come to pass, until you broke the curse." The altar pulsed again, a dark heartbeat echoing through the air. Elias staggered, clutching his abdomen. Lucian was at his side in an instant. "Elias!" He felt it too, a faint foreign magic pressing against the bond between them, like a hand trying to pry it apart. "The bargain is awakening," the Queen Mother whispered. "It wants the child." Lucian's eyes flashed gold. "It will not have him." He stepped forward, his power flaring, the very air trembling. The dark altar cracked under the weight of his aura, light spilling through the seams. "You would defy the gods themselves," the Queen Mother cried. "I would defy heaven and hell for him," Lucian growled. The room blazed gold as Lucian's magic collided with the curse's shadow. The sound was like thunder inside Elias's bones. He felt Lucian's energy wrap around him protectively, fierce, consuming, and desperate. "Stay with me," Lucian said, his voice breaking. "Don't let go." Elias clutched his hand, the mark on his throat glowing like fire. "I'm here, Lucian. I'll always be here." The light erupted. When it faded, the altar lay in ruins. The Queen Mother knelt amid the ashes, weeping silently. Lucian's strength faltered, and he fell to one knee, but his first thought was Elias. "Are you hurt?" Elias shook his head, trembling. "No, but the child." He pressed a hand to his abdomen. A soft pulse answered him, warm, steady. Lucian's breath caught. "They're alive." Elias nodded through tears. "Because of you." Lucian drew him into his arms, holding him close as the morning sun finally broke through the shattered windows. No more bargains, he whispered fiercely. No more curses, only us. Elias smiled weakly, resting his head against his chest. Only us. Later that night, when the Queen Mother was taken to the sanctuary to atone for her deeds, Lucian stood at the balcony with Elias. The kingdom below glittered with lights, unaware of how close it had come to ruin. Lucian wrapped his cloak around Elias's shoulders, his voice soft in the cool night air. The gods demanded a life, he said quietly, but they will learn we create life instead. Elias looked up at him, eyes filled with love. Then our child will be the proof that love can undo what curses began. Lucian smiled faintly, pressing a kiss to his hair. And that an Omega can change the fate of a king. Beneath the stars, they stood together, the Alpha who defied heaven, and the Omega who taught him how to love. Storms rolled over the capital. Thunder rumbled like a warning from the heavens. Elias sat by the window of his chamber, one hand absently tracing the gentle swell of his abdomen. The child inside was restless tonight, strong, powerful, almost as if he too could feel the shifting tension in the air. Lucian had been gone since dawn, dealing with unrest near the border. But Elias was not alone. The Queen Mother had been sent into seclusion, and the palace walls whispered of strange visitors at the gate. That night, a carriage arrived. Rain streaked its golden panels. From it stepped 2 women, cloaked and trembling. Lady Merelda, Elias's stepmother, and beside her, pale as moonlight and frail as glass, Liana, the stepsister whose life had been bought with Elias's own. The guards led them through the halls, and when Elias appeared in the receiving chamber, his heart seized. Liana's eyes were sunken, but her aura shimmered faintly with fading magic, the remnants of the healing ritual Elias's sacrifice had paid for years ago. Merelda fell to her knees the moment she saw him. Elias, my son, forgive me. Elias's breath caught. Why are you here? Because I have nowhere else to go, she whispered, lifting her tear-streaked face. The healers say Liana's illness has returned, and no potion can save her this time. Elias's eyes widened. Returned? The price of betrayal never truly fades, said a voice behind him. Lucian had entered silently, rain still glistening on his cloak. His gaze cut through the room like a blade. You bartered your son to save one child, Lady Merelda. Now the curse comes to claim what it was denied. Liana coughed weakly, blood staining her lips. I didn't want it. I didn't know she sold you. Elias's heart twisted. He looked at the girl who had once stolen everything from him, yet had never truly been the villain. You were just a child, he said softly. You didn't deserve to die. None of us did. Merelda sobbed, clutching her hands together. Please, Elias, you carry the child of prophecy. You are blessed. You can save her again. Give her a fragment of your child's grace and... Lucian's snarl silenced her. You would take from my mate's womb? From the air of this kingdom? Power surged through the room, making the torches flicker violently. Merelda trembled, unable to meet the Alpha King's burning golden gaze. Elias reached out, touching Lucian's arm. Lucian, please. Lucian turned to him, and though fury burned in his eyes, he saw the compassion in Elias's, the same compassion that had once saved his soul. I can't give her our child's grace, Elias whispered, but maybe I can share my own. He stepped toward Liana and knelt before her. His fingers brushed her trembling hand. A glow spread from his skin, warm, gentle, pure. Liana gasped, her breathing easing. Her eyes cleared slightly. You're healing me. Elias smiled faintly. Not healing, forgiving. Let the past go, Liana. Live if you can. Not because of a bargain, but because life is meant to be lived. Merelda covered her mouth, tears streaming down. Lucian's expression softened as he watched Elias, his heart swelling with fierce pride and love. Even after all they did to you, he said quietly, you still choose mercy. Elias turned to him, eyes shining. Because you taught me that love is stronger than vengeance. Lucian stepped forward, cupping Elias's face in both hands. And you taught me what love truly is. The storm outside broke at that moment. A flash of lightning illuminated the chamber, and Elias cried out, clutching his abdomen. Lucian's head snapped toward him. Elias! He staggered, breathing shallow. It's time. The air shimmered around them, and even Merelda fell back in awe as a soft divine radiance began to glow from Elias's body. The prophecy, Liana whispered in wonder. The child is coming. Lucian swept Elias into his arms, barking orders to the guards. Summon the healers, prepare the sacred chamber. But Elias clung to him, panting, his voice strained yet firm. No, I want you with me. Only you. Lucian's heart cracked open. Always my Omega. In the royal birthing chamber, candles flickered as Lucian knelt beside Elias, gripping his hand. The air pulsed with ancient energy. The mark on Elias's throat glowed bright gold, mirrored by the mark on Lucian's chest. Each cry, each breath was a prayer. Lucian, I can feel him. Elias gasped. Breathe, love. You're doing so well. It's too much. Lucian pressed their foreheads together. You are stronger than any curse, my heart. You brought light into my darkness. Now bring our light into this world. With one last cry, the power burst outward, a wave of golden energy flooding the palace. When it faded, Elias lay trembling but alive. Lucian cradled a small, wailing child, a boy with silver hair and faint golden eyes that glowed in the candlelight. Elias's tears fell freely. He's beautiful. Lucian smiled, a rare, soft smile. He has your soul. The baby quieted as Lucian placed him in Elias's arms. The mark on their skin shimmered, 3 hearts, bound by the same light. Outside, wolves howled, not in sorrow but in joy. The kingdom felt it too, the moment the curse lifted and peace began anew. Later, when all was calm, Lucian ordered that Lady Merelda and Liana be allowed to leave the palace unharmed. Not because I forgive, he said, but because he does. Elias only nodded, holding their son close. Let the past die tonight. Lucian kissed his forehead. And let our future begin. The palace had never felt so alive. Every corridor shimmered with soft candlelight and garlands of winter roses. From the highest towers to the lowest courtyards, the people whispered in awe of the child born under the blood moon, the child who silenced storms and calmed wolves with a single cry. They called him Prince Orion, meaning light of dawn. Elias sat by the cradle every day, watching his son's tiny fingers curl and uncurl in sleep. The infant's hair gleamed like moonlight, and sometimes, when the room grew quiet, golden sparks shimmered faintly above his chest, the mark of the prophecy. He hums when he dreams, Elias whispered one morning, smiling as the baby cooed softly. As if he hears the stars. Lucian stood behind him, arms encircling his waist. Then the stars are jealous, because he shines brighter than they ever could. Elias chuckled, leaning into him. You've grown poetic, Your Majesty. You've made me that way. Lucian's lips brushed his temple. Before you, I only spoke in commands. Now, I can't stop whispering prayers. Their quiet laughter filled the room. The sound of a love that had survived curses, betrayal, and gods themselves. But peace in royal palaces never lasts forever. It began with the arrival of a messenger. A man cloaked in black and silver knelt before the throne, head bowed low. Your Majesty, he said, voice low, I bring word from the Eastern Alpha clans. Lucian's expression darkened. What do they want? They claim the prophecy, child, bears their blood, the blood of the moon-blessed Alphas. They demand the right to raise him among their kind. The chamber fell silent. Elias, seated beside Lucian with a baby in his arms, felt a cold tremor run through him. Raise him? They would take him from us? The messenger nodded. They say the light in his veins belongs to the first wolves, the ones who were neither Alpha nor Omega, but divine. Lucian's aura surged, sharp as thunder. He is mine. He is ours. Let them come, and they will find their gods waiting for judgment. The messenger flinched. Elias rose slowly, the child still nestled against his heart. Lucian. Lucian looked at him, fierce, protective, trembling. They won't stop, Elias, he said. They will see our son as a weapon. They will want his power. Elias's voice softened, though his eyes gleamed with quiet fire. Then they'll learn he was born not of war, but of love. And love will protect him. 3 nights later, the Eastern emissaries arrived. Tall, silver-haired alphas bearing the sigil of the Moonfang, the first royal bloodline that had ruled before Lucian's ancestors. They entered the throne room as dawn broke, their leader, a striking, broad-shouldered man with icy blue eyes, bowing just enough to show courtesy but not submission. Your Majesty, he said smoothly, we mean no offense. But the prophecy belongs to the Moonfang. That child is the vessel of our god. Lucian's tone was cold steel. He is my son. And yet the mark on his skin is not yours, the emissary countered. Look, he gestured, and as if responding to the challenge, baby Orion opened his eyes. The gathered courtiers gasped. The infant's irises shimmered. Gold at the center, silver at the rim, the colors of both Lucian and the Moonfang. The emissary smiled faintly. See? He carries the dual light, Alpha King and Moon Blessed. He is the bridge between the old world and the new. Lucian's hand clenched into a fist, but before he could speak, Elias stepped forward, holding the baby closer. A bridge does not belong to one side, he said quietly. It belongs to both, or it collapses. The emissary hesitated, surprised. Elias continued, his voice calm but radiant. If our son carries both bloodlines, then he will unite them, not be torn between them. You claim him as yours, but perhaps he is everyone's light. A murmur spread through the hall. Lucian stared at him, awe softening his anger. There was something divine in Elias at that moment, a quiet strength that commanded even the most ancient alphas to bow their heads. The emissary sank to one knee. Then let the boy be raised as the bridge, under your protection, but with our blessing. Lucian exhaled slowly. Very well, but understand, harm him once, and I will erase your clan from history. We understand, Alpha King. That night, after the emissaries departed, Lucian stood by the cradle, watching their son sleep. He's already changing the world, he murmured. Elias joined him, wrapping an arm around his waist. He's your son, Lucian. Strong, brave, protective. But he's also mine, gentle, stubborn, hopeful. Lucian smiled faintly. A perfect mix. The world won't know what hit it. Elias laughed softly. Neither will we. Lucian leaned down, pressing a kiss to his lips. Slow, tender, and full of everything they had survived. Whatever comes, he whispered. I'll face it with you. For him. For us. Elias rested his head against his chest. The rhythm of Lucian's heart steady beneath his ear, and beneath the silver moonlight, their son stirred, eyes glowing faintly gold and silver, the light of two worlds united. The years passed like the turning of a golden page. Prince Orion grew, bright and radiant, adored by the people and blessed by the stars. He walked before he could speak, and when he finally uttered his first word, it was light. Elias often watched him play in the royal gardens, laughter echoing like music through the palace. Sometimes when the boy grew tired and fell asleep under the white willow tree, the sunlight itself would bend toward him, as if the heavens still remembered the day he was born. But as Orion's power grew, so did the whispers. Priests began to dream of twin suns burning over the kingdom, one of life, one of destruction. And in the dead of night, Lucian began to have visions. It struck him in the council chamber one evening. Lucian's eyes glazed over, and suddenly, he stood in a world drowned in crimson light. Wolves howled from the ruins of the palace. In the distance stood his son, older, crowned in fire, and beside him Elias, his body shimmering like glass, fading, as if light itself was slipping away. No. Lucian reached out. Elias! But his voice echoed into nothingness. Orion turned, golden silver eyes burning with divine energy. To give light to the world, the vision whispered, the heart of the Omega must break. Lucian jolted awake, gasping. The council chamber was whole again, but his soul trembled. That night he told Elias everything. Elias listened in silence, his hand resting gently over Lucian's. You saw the end, he said softly. I saw you fade, Lucian whispered, his voice shaking. I won't let it happen. Elias looked at him, his expression full of love and sorrow. If the gods demand a heart, then let it be mine. You gave me life, Lucian. I would give it back 1,000 times over. Lucian caught his face between trembling hands. Don't you dare say that. I will find another way. Elias smiled faintly. You always do. It came 3 months later, an eclipse unlike any in living memory. The sky turned silver and crimson, and the air thrummed with ancient energy. Orion, now 5 years old, woke crying in his sleep. Father, the stars are calling me. Lucian held him close. Stay with me, little one. But Elias felt it. the pull of the prophecy deep within his soul. He rose from their bed, walking barefoot into the garden, where moonlight and shadow danced together. The Queen Mother appeared then, older now but serene, her penance nearly complete. "The gods ask again," she whispered. "The curse is undone, but balance demands a price." Elias's voice was steady. "Then I will pay it." Lucian appeared behind him, his power flaring like a golden storm. "No, I won't lose you." Elias turned, smiling through tears. "You won't, because I'll always be part of you, and of him." Orion ran to them, clutching Elias's robes. "Papa, don't go." Elias knelt, touching the boy's cheek. "I'm not going anywhere, my light. I'm just going to make sure you can shine forever." The sky split open, light cascading down like a living flame. Elias's mark glowed fiercely. Lucian tried to pull him back, but the light enveloped them both. For a moment, there was silence. Then a voice, gentle and infinite. "Love that defies fate cannot die. It becomes eternity." When the light faded, Lucian found himself kneeling on the grass, Orion in his arms. Elias was gone. Only a single white feather lay where he had stood, glowing faintly. Lucian bowed his head over it, silent tears falling. But then Orion touched the feather and it pulsed, turning into a soft golden wisp that sank into his heart. The boy looked up at his father, smiling through tears. "He's here, inside me." Lucian pulled him close, whispering, "Always." Years later, under King Lucian's reign, the kingdom entered an age of peace. The child of light grew strong, wise, gentle, and powerful, and every spring, when the first silver moon rose, a warm breeze would flow through the palace gardens, carrying the scent of lilies and honey, Elias's favorite. Lucian would close his eyes then and hear his voice in the wind. "You kept your oath." He'd whisper back, "You kept your promise." And somewhere between heaven and earth, the Alpha and his Omega were still together, bound not by prophecy or curse, but by love that had conquered them both. Epilogue. Years later, when Prince Orion became king, he built a shrine beneath the white willow where his parents once stood. He called it the Temple of Light and Shadow, and carved on its stone gates were the words that defined an era. Love defied fate, and fate bowed. The end. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Kindly comment below if you loved it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more amazing content. Drop a comment with your favorite moment, and I'll see you in the next one.